All eyes on Tinubu to fix economy. FX petrol subsidy removal top expected reforms. Nigerian big banks and fintech foray spotlights valuation. Business Day PwC Arewa 24 to promote family businesses on TV. And details of that story is on page 50. ICPC probes billion naira salary fraud syndicate in federal civil service. And you can find details of that story on page 51. And that's it on Business Day.
All right, now let's go to the Punch. And on the front page, we have Tinubu takes oath as president. Nigerians demand quick action. You can find details of that story on page 2. And to the rider, we have private sector demands blueprint on economy, fuel subsidy. Don't pity me, I asked for the job. I won't give excuses. That's according to President-elect. And finally, Tinubu worked hard to be President-elect, says Buhari. And that's about that on the Punch.
And that story takes us to the Daily Sun. On the Daily Sun, we have agitators hijack radio station in Ibadan, attack police station in Lagos. That story is on page 4. National carriers jetliner flew in as Nigeria Air, returned with passengers as Ethiopian Airlines. That's from sources. I'll take that again. National carriers jetliner flew in as Nigerian Air and returned with passengers as Ethiopian Airlines. How does that even make sense? I guess we'll find out eventually. But that story is on page 26. New era as Tinubu and governors take oath of office today. And that story is on page 16. And that's about that on the Daily Sun.
All right, now to the Nation, we have on the front page, world leaders for Tinubu's inauguration. 18 new 10 second-term governors take oath. Details of that story on page 3. And we go to the right corner of that paper where we have Ayako, 339 eminent Nigerians get national awards. Details on page 4. And finally, Reps concur with senators on CBN Act amendment. Details on page 3. And that's about that on the Nation newspaper.
And quickly we move on to The Guardian. Excuse me. The Guardian says cautious optimism as Tinubu offers hope to weary Nigerians. That story can be found on page 6. And Buhari's tenure ends, but not his rare economic footprints. That story can be found on page 21. And finally on The Guardian, still on The Guardian, I apologize for my difficult choices that caused pain, Buhari tells Nigerians. That story is on page 6. And finally, operators fault Nigeria Air's launch without AOC registration number. And that story is on page 7.
Now to the Tribune, the Nigerian Tribune. We have on the front page, Tinubu takes oath of office today, his road to presidency. Now we go to the rider, Abuja Agog, all set for his inauguration. Eagle Square takes shape. Security forces condone off 3-arm zone. Governors-elect set for inauguration in 28 states. And finally, world leaders arrive. Details of that story on page 6 and 7. Now to the top strip. Police arrest 7 in Ibadan. Lagos as Yoruba Nation agitators attack radio police station. Details of that story can be found on page 102. Akintola disowns perpetrators. Autumn hands over 187 billion naira debt to successor. That's quite unfortunate. Details of that story can be found on page 6. Now we'll go to the lower strip. Buhari orders military to surrender Balende Eid ground to Lagos Muslim community. Once Lagos State Government CFO issued to Jamata Muslimin Council. Details of that story on page 97. Olubadan. Anyako, Emefiele, Oshoba, Daura, others for national honors. Details on page 102. And finally, Buhari discriminated against South-South. That's according to Edwin Clark. Details of that story can be found on page 102. And that's about that on the Nigerian Tribune.